Hey y'all, sorry I'm out today. I pinched a nerve in my back and I'm hardly able to move, so I was not able to drive or come up there and even walk to my classroom. Um, we are starting something new today, so I'm making a video and I hope y'all pay attention because we're not going to go over this in this much detail anymore just today, so make sure you're paying attention to the video. All right, so first we're going to talk about independent and dependent. Then we're going to talk about genuine range. Y'all have learned both, okay? Okay, so independent in the real world means somebody who can, stand alone, somebody who doesn't need help. So independent algebra pretty much means the same thing. Now our independent variables are always our x variables. Give my handwriting on this. Okay, it's what comes first. It's our input. Okay, those are the things you need to remember for independent. Now, dependent, just like you think in the real world, dependent means it depends on something that is independent. So this is actually our live variables. This happens second, and it's your output. Forgive my handwriting. Writing on the computer screen with this little pen is not as easy as it looks. Okay, so let's talk about some examples. If you look, number one's done for you. It says for number 1 through 8, we're going to underline the independent, which remember is our x. It's what comes first. And we're going to circle the dependent, which is our y, and it's what comes second. Okay? So here it says a person's blood pressure and the person's age. Okay? So think about it. Your person's age comes first, then you take their blood pressure. They already have their age. That's independent. Okay, the blood pressure should depend on their age. Okay, looking at number 2, number of absences and your grades in school. So does your number of absences depend on your grades in school? Like if you have an A, can you skip a bunch of classes? No. Okay, so grades in school depend on the number of absences. Because if y'all have like no absences, your grades should be better than what would happen if you had like 50 absences. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Grades in school is dependent. So we're going to circle it. While the number of absences is independent. Because your grades in school depend on the number of absences you have. Okay, amount of air pollution and the number of cars on the road. So does the amount of air pollution depend on the number of cars on the road? Or does the number of cars on the road depend on the amount of air pollution? Like before you drive to school, do you have to think about the air pollution? No, so the amount of air pollution depends, that's your dependent, on the number of cars on the road. Okay? Um, I'm going to do one more with y'all, and then I'm going to give y'all time to do the rest, and we'll talk about the answers tomorrow. So the length of the side of a square and the perimeter of the square. So does the length of the side depend on the perimeter? Do you find the perimeter first, or do you find the lengths first? So remember, what comes first is independent. And here you would find the length of your square first. So this is your independent. And your perimeter depends on the lengths of the square. So I'm giving y'all some time to do number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. Okay, if you're not finished, that's fine. We're going to actually go over the last four. So again, we're going to think about what's independent versus what's dependent. So the number of CDs sold each week depends on the weekly profit. So do you find out your profit before you sell? Or do you sell your CDs, then figure out your profit? Which the second one is true. You'll sell CDs and then you'll account for whatever your profit is. So what comes first is our independent. Independent we're underlining. And what's second, our profit, what's dependent is circle. Okay, time it takes to open your locker and how many numbers are in your combination. So does the time it takes depend on how many numbers? Does how many numbers depend on the time it takes? So the time it takes to open your locker depends on how many numbers you have in. So this is our dependent and this is our independent. Okay, the incline of a ramp and the speed of a skateboard. The way to think about this one is the steeper the incline, the quicker the speed. So the incline of the ramp came first, then the speed of the skateboard. So your incline, your speed of the skateboard is dependent. It depends on the incline of a ramp. And lastly, cost of groceries and the number of people in your household. Well, think about it. The more people you have in your house, the more your grocery bills are going to cost. So your cost of groceries is dependent on the number of people in your household. Okay, guys, so the second half of this page is just exactly what we did. So I'm actually going to allow you to do that. You're just figuring out again which one is independent, which one is dependent. And now, you instead of doing this, you're going to put them on the x-axis if it's independent, on the y-axis if it's dependent. Because that's how you always set up your tables. Your independent always goes to the x, and your dependent always goes on the y-axis. Okay? So I'll give you about 2 minutes to do these. If you don't finish, that's fine. You can either finish at the end of class or tomorrow first thing. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the back. So domain and range are things that you'll have covered before. We're going to cover them again. So a big thing to remember about domain is it's all possible x values. Okay? If a range is all possible y values. So a little acronym to remember this is Dix-Roy. So D stands for domain, I stands for input, X is all X values, AR stands for range, O stands for output, and Y stands for all Y values. Another thing I want y'all to write is how I remember these things. Just building a table, X is on the left, Y is on the right, just like always. You have to have your ID to go to the doctor. So this is independent, dependent, domain, range. Okay? Remember, X is always your input, range is always your, or Y is always your output, sorry. Okay, so one last thing before we get going, I want you to write this right under your boxes for your acronym, is one thing we need to know when we talk about domain and range is discrete versus continuous. Okay, discrete is something you count. Okay, and it's also only graphed with no lines, so discrete dots. The way you can tell examples of things that are discrete are like people. Okay, you count how many people are in the room. Tables, you count how many tables are in the room. Continuous, now discrete, no, continuous does not mean it goes on forever. It just means it continuously happens. So just continuous is something you measure. If I can spell. Okay. This is graphed with lines, with dots and lines. Okay. So examples of something that are continuous is like your height. You don't grow forever. Eventually you stop growing, okay? But continuously grew from the day you were born to now. Okay. Another thing that's continuous is time. Okay, time doesn't stop. It's something that continues. Okay, those are the kind of things. So time is a measurement as well. Okay, so you're actually about to do a discovery. You will be given this foldable. I want you to cut it out, just like you see in these pictures. And you're going to find the domain and range using this and cut out their graphs as well. So on each of y'all should have gotten your own graphs. On each graph, I want you to write the domain of that graph and the range of that graph. So if we're looking at this one right here on the board, the way we find domain is it's your width, okay? Domain is your width. It's your side to side. Remember, it's your X. Because if you look at this circle, it goes from here to here. So you'll use the wall flaps, just like in this picture, to show you how wide it gets. So it goes from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the domain for this one, as an inequality, would be like 0 is less than or equal to x, is less than or equal to 5. Or we could write it the other way, which would be just in brackets, 0 to 5. Okay. So again, with the range, you'll do the same thing, except you'll flip the range flaps. Now we're not doing the cards. Okay, so you're just going to keep these until I get there tomorrow. So this is what you were trying. If you do finish, there is a practice that looks like this. If you get to it, cool. If not, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you kind of how to find the domain and range by doing a couple of these with y'all tomorrow. So right now you're working on this activity. If you have time, you may get to the worksheet. Y'all have a great day. Please work hard for the sub. I will see y'all tomorrow.